Uranus moving into Taurus. This is one of the most exciting transits that I've seen that are going to be taking place over the next couple years, and I'm really excited to be talking about it today. So Uranus, to start off with, is a really forward-thinking, fun, innovative, destabilizing energy. It demands authenticity from us, and it really requires us to work together as a collective in order to create change in the world. One of the big evolutionary goals of Uranus is to withdraw from conditioned patterns. So this is where we see the clash and the battle really between the Saturnian energy of what's always been here, the traditions, and Uranus that wants to rebel and wants to bring innovation and change and new discoveries to the planet and to the collective. And it's been in Taurus for the last 8 years now, where it's been creating a lot of changes in our resources, how we manage money, cryptocurrency. It's been creating changes in trade and how products are sold. But this is a very stable energy. So Uranus has been creating stability. Uranus has been creating a lot of change in an area of life that's not really necessarily healthy when there's a lot of instability there, right? So Uranus, many say that Uranus is actually debilitated in Taurus because Uranus represents change and fast-moving, sudden destabilizations. And Taurus is like our money, our survival, right? The things that are beauty, the things that we don't want to change, the things that we want to stay still. So when it's moving into Gemini, which is a mutable air sign, which is like literally such an opposite energy from Taurus. Taurus is very grounded, very stable, practical, rational. And Gemini is like go, 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 go. Changes, it's adaptable, it's flexible, it's able to kind of turn on a dime, it's interested in a whole bunch of different things, it's social, it represents ideas, right? And of course we know ideas, these are things that can spread really quickly, right? Especially with the channels that we have now with social media and the internet. And God knows what else is coming with all these revolutionary energies that Uranus is soon going to be bringing. So it's a really exciting time, and it's going to show there's going to be quite a contrast. So Uranus is first going to be entering Gemini on July the 7th, 2025. It's going to pop its head in there for about 5 months, and then on November 7th, it's going to be retrograding back into Taurus, and it will hang out there for a few more months. And then end of April 2026, April 25th, I believe, Uranus will be fully in Gemini, where it will stay there for the next 8 years and creating a lot of change, a lot of excitement, and bringing us the future of communication. So this year, with its short tenure in Gemini, we're going to be getting a little bit of a teaser, right? And then Uranus is going to go back into Taurus. It's going to finish up some stuff. It's going to wash its hands. It's going to do what it needs to do. This is a time when we could see things like cryptocurrency and digital assets become a lot more popular and probably even, more mainstream, more adapted, more usable. And then when it moves into Gemini, things are really going to pick up the pace, right? So this is signaling a time when the collective, when humanity feels like they're ready for change. Like they're just ready for new ideas, for new concepts, for new ways of thinking, right? Gemini is the sign that actually rules the thinking mind. It's the first air sign of the zodiac. And so it's where we learn to communicate, we learn to process and understand information intellectually, but this is more on an individual level, right? It's not until the air signs move into Libra and Aquarius that we begin to bring the other people into play. So this is a little more about intellectual development and just like communication for fun, communication for stimulation, right? So this is a very stimulating energy. And we're going to see ideas spreading like wildfire. But the thing about Uranus is that it can also rebel for rebellion's sake. So it doesn't mean that everything is going to necessarily be true, right? Uranus is an energy at its highest level that is attuned to the truth, that wants what is free, that wants what is authentic. But like with any other evolutionary process, you've got to kiss a few frogs until you really find the one truth, until you really find something that works. So there's going to be a ton of experimentation going on, and that's on so many different levels, social levels, technological. I think we're even experimenting with different ways of processing information, like changing the way that we think, changing the way that we learn. We're already starting to hear news about, like Harvard getting defunded and all of these changes with AI, like the way that we learn, the way that we are educated is going to be going through some major changes. And I think that it could really bring an end to a lot of these established universities and a lot of these, kind of mainstream traditional ways of learning. A great way to contemplate Uranus is that it's always battling Saturn. So it doesn't want what's already been established, it wants the new. And like I said, it can rebel for rebellion's sake. And so this is a time for experimentation and coming up with all these different new ways of thinking, of seeing the world. And it's like, but we're ready for this. Humanity is ready for this. Like, we're ready to start moving fast. We've been kind of stuck in one place for a while now. And there's a lot of chaos going on in the world. We can all see that, and our minds need to change. The thinking mind, the way that we understand and relate to one another, and the way that we communicate to ourselves is also, all of these things are up for grabs in a new way. I think that neurotropics is also going to be something that is going to be greatly talked about, greatly experimented with and researched, and I think there's going to be some drama around that too, and like a lot of discussions, a lot of talks. Gemini is communication, coming up around the ethical values, the morals around using neuroenhancement drugs or different treatments, talking about putting chips in the brain, or I don't know, different lasers or ways that we can improve the way that we think through artificial means, right? And with Uranus energy, it is really like this mad scientist where everything is up for grabs. There's not really morals when it comes to Uranus. It's like this creative energy that doesn't really care so much about what it creates. It just wants the new, right? It just wants to challenge the established norms of society. And so it can leave a trail of mess in its wake and can also cause a lot of destabilization and disruption. So just be careful when it comes to what you choose to put in your body, especially regarding like enhancing your thinking, enhancing your mood. I think there's going to be a lot of talk, a lot of debate and discussion around this. And just our minds can be open as well to more quirky and unconventional perspectives. Uranus and Gemini can be very quirky. Like Gemini's style, I find it's like there's a lot of patterns and it's like kind of funky and it can be clean and classy, it's Mercury ruled. So there's a balance to it. But Gemini is like more of a fun, flirty, extroverted energy that wants to stand out in a bit, and it does want to be heard. And with Uranus going in there can be a real opportunity for a lot of like political commentary, like a lot of themes around like creating social change. And I know that that's here already, but like I think it's just going to keep getting louder and louder and louder about what is best for the collective, right? How can we think? How can we communicate? How can we connect with each other in a way that is best for the collective? And Uranus energy is really prevalent right now as well, because we just had Pluto move into Aquarius, which is the sign of Uranus. So not only do we have Uranus changing signs into an air sign, we also have Pluto in the sign of Uranus, basically. Creating a lot of transformation in this area. So it's kind of like a double Uranian force that we are reckoning with, both in air signs. So just a ton of change and technological developments. Also different ways in scientific thinking. I think now that we have AI and all the robotics that are coming on as well, like expect that to grow. We're just warming up here. Let's be honest here. Like AI it's like 0.25% of what it's probably going to be like at the time that Uranus is kind of done with its tenure in Gemini. So get ready for some innovation on all different levels And particularly with the scientific development that's going to be available for us. Like, I heard this really interesting study that they compared the ability for doctors, like human doctors, to diagnose health issues, and they compared that to the capabilities of AI. And so when doctors were diagnosing health issues just by themselves without computer technology, they were getting 70% efficiency. When the doctors combined their intelligence with the AI, they got 80% efficiency. And when they totally took the human element out and they had the AI do the diagnosis, there was 90% efficiency. Now, I can't say that this is like the case over all spectrums, right? Like, this is just one study that I've heard about. But it does kind of paint a picture about how the possibilities for human error can greatly be reduced when we begin to rely on these new scientific developments with the computer technology and artificial intelligence that can guide the way. And I'm not saying that this is the only path. I'm not saying that this is the safest path. There's definitely a lot of ethical concerns, moral concerns surrounding just putting all our trust into a computer. And that's something that there's going to be a lot of debate about as well, a lot of talks, right, of all this innovation that's going to be coming. However, it is coming. It's coming. Like, you can't say that it's 100% perfect, but it's good enough. It's great enough, really, for us to begin really investing in this technology and giving it more and more trust. And I could see a lot of destabilization happening in society because of these big changes that are coming. So, Gemini is a very adaptable energy. So all the change, all the innovation is going to be rewarded by if you are adaptable, if you can be quick to pivot and quick to make changes. Gemini also rules cities. And so there can be a lot of new developments in the cities. Uranus represents interconnected systems. So, and Gemini rules transportation. So you could see governments and communities investing a lot more resources in developing, ways to get around the city in more efficient ways, perhaps even scaling down the amount of cars that we're using. Also just developments in transportation in general. Like, I don't know if you've seen photos of those new Tesla, I think it's called a cyber car. We'll see how well this video ages. And there's no steering wheel in it. It's completely operated by satellite. Right? And it was so trippy the first time I saw the video of this car without a driving wheel. But yeah, that's coming, and it's going to grow. And especially with like Uranus and Taurus, developments in transportation, developments in how we move, how we get around. But things are going to be busy, right? Things are going to be a lot busier. And this definitely runs the risk, like from an individual level, of our nervous systems being way too overstimulated. We have Neptune moving into, it's already in Aries, a masculine sign. And like I mentioned, Pluto, Saturn's also going to be in Aries. Our saving grace really is the Jupiter in Cancer that will be moving in there end of June. So that's going to help to ground us a bit into our emotional body, and give us like faith and optimism for all of these changes that are happening. And hopefully some abundance as well can come from all of these changes. And I guess that just depends on how well developed your Jupiter is. So definitely there's a risk of overstimulating the nervous system. So just make sure that you're grounding, that you're doing breath work exercises. With all of this air energy, it's going to be really helpful to, get into activate the parasympathetic nervous system, ground, right? Sit in silence, come back to yourself, like really try to chill the brain waves of the mind, because they are going to be going a lot more than normal because there's just going to be so much more stimulation. And Gemini is also this jack of all trades energy. So it doesn't really like to go deep into something. It likes to spread out. So I think we're also going to start seeing all of this wacky, weird technologies, weird, like innovative ideas, and some will stick and many won't. Do you know what I mean? Like I think of, you know, in like China and some of these places in Japan and Asia where you go into these like huge malls and it's just, you know, plasma lights and there's all of these stands with all of this random stuff, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these like stores or stands in this huge mall. And like, I always just think, who is shopping here? Like, how are these people making any money? There's just all this random stuff around. That's what I think of when I think of Uranus and Gemini, but it's going to be way more different. So people are going to be very innovative. Is it going to be useful? I don't know. But this is a time for experimentation and just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. I think we're also going to be seeing a lot more independence in our media, in our journalism, also in the commercial business activities. You know, Gemini rules commercial business activities. It rules marketing. It rules sales. It rules any kind of promotional activities, PR, human resources is more Libra, I guess. But, you know, the way that we do business is greatly going to change. The way that we communicate our message. I think there's going to be a lot more developments in marketing, you know, like really interesting ways of promoting information. And like we've already seen, like, you know, social media take over a lot of that slice of the pie when it comes to what companies are investing in. So be on the lookout for that, you know, and I think also with this development of independent journalism and new ideas, people are going to be looking more for authenticity in the information, because I think there's going to be so much information that's coming down the pipe for us that we're just not going to know where to turn. And so I think there's going to be a rise of just independent journalism and, you know, even these really established news systems, news networks starting to fade out, you know, and I wouldn't be surprised if more than 50% of them will have faded out by the time that Uranus completes its transit through Gemini, because like I said, Uranus wants to challenge the traditional. It wants to take away what was established and create something new. So when it's going into Gemini, it's coming after your newscasters, it's coming after the transportation industry, it's coming after all of the ways that we've been communicating and sharing information. So, you know, big upturns even in the internet, new social media channels. And there's a lawlessness here with Uranus, you know. Saturn's more of the energy of like rules and regulations, but this is more of like a wild, wild west. And we can already start to feel that with like this development of the AI and all of the concerns that are around that. Like, who is really driving the bus here, you know? It's all just a free-for-all, and are we putting in the right parameters in place in order to make sure that we're safe against the robots, against the technology that comes out? Nobody knows, right? This is an experience that we've never been through in humanity yet. So we're kind of just making up the rules that we go, but people are being reckless, and that is the energy of Uranus, because it just wants change. It wants the future. It wants to challenge. It wants to destabilize. It wants to innovate. You know, Gemini also rules skills, you know, hand skills. It rules language. So we can expect changes in this area, you know, new skill developments. Like, you know, they're saying that a lot of the courses that people are studying for now in university, there may not even be a job for them when they get out in 4 years, because that's how fast things are changing. So there can be needs for different skills that we didn't even know were a skill before, but we're training the hands particularly in all these new ways. You know, it's fine motor skills. Actually, I was talking to some guy at the bus stop yesterday actually, and he was telling me that like right now, basically in the States, they do have a lot of technology for like robots to do surgeries and stuff, because they can be super precise, like to a fraction of like a millimeter precision, working on someone's knee or working on someone's, you know, spine, or I don't know if they're at the heart yet, that kind of level, but like at the end of the day, who are you going to trust more, you know, a robot or a human hand? You don't know how well he slept last night. You don't know if he had a fight with his wife. You don't know like if he's withdrawing from coffee or something. You don't know all these things. There's like so much more room for error with the humans. So, but then it's like this idea of, do I really want a robot working on me? Is there, like, because they don't possess the same level, a certain level of intelligence that humans have. Like, they're very specific and they can do exactly what they're ordered to do, but they don't have the consciousness to kind of know what's right and wrong. So they kind of just do what they're told, and how adaptable are they? And so these are kind of questions that are really going to be talked about with this transit. And yeah, the innovation of robots like that is coming too. Like, get ready for that. You know, this idea of having our own kind of Rosie, like from the Jetsons. And yeah, and like AI, like special assistant that we can just tell them to do things, and they go and book us meals and order us things, and they know what we like, and like that's coming. That's coming. Get ready. I also think there can be some changes in language as well, like new words coming online, new ways of using words. I was talking to this guy a couple weeks ago, and he was telling me that in French, they've created a new word that's a non-gender pronoun, and they've combined il and elle, which is he and she, together to make il, I-E-L, which is the non-gender pronoun. So this is an example of language changing and new innovative ideas. You know, like 100 years ago, people wouldn't have done that kind of stuff, right? So we can see changes in language and how people choose to communicate. You know, I also think like, you know, VR headsets and like special glasses, maybe things that we can like have a computer in our face, new technology to monitor our health, like smartwatches, different things that we can put onto the body to see all of our movements. You know, Gemini does represent movements. So the last time that Uranus entered Gemini was right in the middle of World War II. It was in May 1942. And there was a lot of technological development that was going on at this time, particularly to serve the war efforts. I'm going to share some of those with you so you can just kind of see how this Gemini and energy can play out when Uranus is combined with it. So first of all, this is the saddest thing, this was when the Manhattan Project first was created, and this was in order to develop nuclear weapons. And of course, we all know that in 1942, the first atomic bomb was launched in Hiroshima and put an end to World War II, which is a really sad story, but it's also can show this mad scientist energy that Uranus just like wants to create, wants to develop. So we have to be careful. We have to proceed with caution. And the thing is that Saturn is going to be debilitated in Aries at this time, right? So Saturn's not going to be doing so well. He's not going to be able to put the structures in place for us to be discerning with the kinds of things that we are going to be developing, right? And Uranus is strong in Gemini. Uranus really likes to be in Gemini because it's fast, right? It adapts well to all the creativity that it wants to go into, right? Uranus does really well in the mental realm, in the air signs, because like the mind can be very adaptable, much more adaptable than like, you know, the world of form or the world of emotion, right? Like in the feminine signs. Radar technology was also significantly invested in and developed around 1942 after Uranus moved into Gemini. And it was intended so that they could navigate the ships better, navigate the airplanes better for the war, right? And so we all know Gemini rules transportation. So new developments there. Also, the world's first electronic digital computer was actually developed, and it was developed in order to analyze cryptic messages. So that was kind of the reason for it. So we see, yeah, that technology is growing with the communication and decoding stuff. Like this is kind of the first hackers, I guess. The microwave was also developed in 1942, and Velcro was also developed in 1942. So all of these yeah, just different inventions that really changed our lives and that are still influencing us today. So my advice to you is to take it slow. Things are going to be moving fast already. There's no sense in adding to the chaos. Take your time, be discerning, tap into your inner wisdom, and make sure that the changes that you're making and what you're bringing into your body to enhance yourself, if that is your thing, is really deeply aligned. Like, don't be too rash. You know, Uranus is already going to be creating some destabilization in how we communicate and how we share information and how we move around. And just in our thinking process in general. So it's best to stay as grounded as possible, move slow, be discerning, call in the opposite as well of Gemini, which is Sagittarius, right? The inner wisdom, the philosophical understanding, the purpose, the meaning behind these things. Is this something that's going to expand you? Is this something that is going to inspire you and make the world a better place? Is there morality in this, right? Uranus energy can feel a bit like a free-for-all, but you know, it's an exciting time too, but it doesn't mean you have to take everything from it. It doesn't mean that you have to say yes to everything that Uranus, that would be so overwhelming for your nervous system. So stay calm, move slow, be open-minded, right? We're here for the ride. This is a really exciting time to be alive. And I, for one, am super grateful to be living through this really exciting transit of Uranus through Gemini. So have a beautiful 8 years ahead of you. Let me know what you think in the comments. Please like and subscribe. Have a beautiful day, guys.